Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, Olúwa mi ò dìde ojú ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Welcome everyone to Theoryforge Chronicles, Episode 6, The Plague Bringer. I am Phantom X, of course, joined by Sog, Diggs, and Legendary Neurotoxin. How's everyone doing? We haven't been around for a while, so how is everyone doing?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Took a little vacation up to the Seattle area. Unfortunately, I think they're a little too busy to do tours right now, so I wasn't able to go visit, but oh well, maybe next time.
Yeah, I was in San Diego for work, and things at the OP group are real busy these days, so been doing that. I also managed to get away last weekend. Took the kids to some museums in Washington, D.C. That was fun. Happy to be back, though. Ready to get into the normal swing of things. Tiggs, You've been doing a bunch of stuff, too, right?
Yeah, but mostly what I've been doing lately is playing No Man's Sky. And I got some videos on my YouTube for that, and I'll have some more coming later. And at the moment, I'm suffering from this event.
All right, the perfect entrance. Of course, the Plague Bringer, we are referring to the current event going on, which we were going to talk about, 2 weeks ago, I guess. And Violet was going to join us. Unfortunately, we'll have to reschedule that. But we put a pause because we didn't have this yet. So we've been, when did Searing Plague start? How long ago now?
A week?
Yeah. And kind of got off to some rocky start, now going. But we wanted it's new stuff to talk about, so we wanted to kind of dive into what we think about it and go from there. I know everyone here has some sort of thought or opinion.
No way. Holy crap, how's that possible?
Except maybe me. No, I guess I'll start. You guys are going to, I think, have a lot more to say than I will.
I was going to say when you said except maybe me, I remember those landmark episodes where we talked for like an hour and dude say, "What do you think?" Well, I'm not a builder.
Yep, that was my fallback because I'm not. I guess I'll start. Honestly, I've not really jumped too much into this event just because it's not that it doesn't make other people happy that they don't enjoy it. It's just sort of not my. It's not interesting to me, and that's not really meant to be a knock on anybody at Soulbound. I'm sure they're putting a lot of effort and time into this. It's for me something that I'm not. What I want to experience is more. I guess you could still say this is a story. I mean, you're following a path and you're working together. It's just not sort of in a presentation or a package that I find really interesting. So, I mean, I've played around with it a little bit. I'm just much more ready to get into the actual game and make some history. I think for me that the two, and I get the community part too, but I don't know. It's just not something for me that I find too interesting. At this point, I don't know if I play around with it, that might change, but that's essentially where I'm at with it. So, all right.
Neuro, you've had the most interaction, right?
Yeah, so for me, I see it as, while it feels like something where the right hand didn't know what the left foot was doing or something, I appreciate the intent. I know it's a little late and maybe didn't actually turn out exactly how it was intended, but as a way to start kind of bringing the community together, and most importantly, giving people who want to express leadership the opportunity to do that, and giving people the opportunity to kind of follow along, participate, just have the work taken out of their hands. It's like, yeah, I want this thing to go this way instead of that way, so just tell me what to do and I'll just click through. I appreciate that there's a lot more of an emphasis on role playing from some players, and others it's just like, yeah, just give me these and I'll do this, and give these to this person, and pass it along. So the mention that had kind of come up in our little bit of discussion before the show in our channel was about the idea of it being kind of like the raid group mentality, that it's just everyone doing what leadership says. And I understand that to an extent, but I also want to say that this, I feel like, is a little bit different. It isn't like a small guild of 100 people sending 40 people to do this very specific song and dance to make sure that they beat the bosses and get the loot, so much as something on more of a global scale, and you're really going to see the leadership of all the different communities kind of rise up and show their stuff, which is a good way for people to actually be invested in those people when gameplay starts. That if these people are showing good leadership and good organization, that when the game actually starts, as much as we know that plans made before playing any MMO likely change very quickly, at least the people that are organized and have some sort of idea of what's going on a little bit before going in and what they're going to do in case things aren't going the way that they had expected. I think those people will still end up being the ones that are keeping their kingdoms, keeping their land, keeping their titles and stuff, and not only for them but the people around them by the time exposition ends and real gameplay begins.
Cool. So, I'm going to follow up on some of the leadership, but I'm wanting Saad to weigh in before I do, so go for it, Saad.
I think that one of my concerns about the game as a whole at this point is that coming from a MUD, text background where basically anything that anyone types is reality, right? It creates this expectation of of how things are. So, if you're in a duchy, say we have a relationship with Sanctifantry and Polite, and I may or may not actually end up there when the game starts or not, but there's this idea and this role play feeling that there are actually things already happening. So, we'll get this update that, there was a falling out amongst the nobility and so has been banished from the duchy and all of this stuff and, all kinds of plans. And we talked to, when we talked to John Warren, who's got all kinds of wonderful plans and things set up for his, animal refuge and all of that, and Morbus wants to subjugate the world, and we hear all of this and it keeps getting built up, and then all of a sudden that these Discord communities are working together, but translating that to an in-game community is very different. So and then when I think about the Searing Plague, so I go to the site and I log in, and there's this thing with people in Discord chatting about it at the bottom, and it's it's this funnel to Discord, not a funnel to the game. If we say that Searing Plague is the game, right? It is the game, and at this point, it's the only interactive thing that we have. So I'm going to use that as let's pretend that the Searing Plague is Chronicles of Elyria. And so right now, what we have is this thin wrapper of a game where you do some stuff on this page, but all of the interaction with people is somewhere else, and but it's only one other place. So it's really a Discord game because there's no social media integration. Like, if this is a recruiting event and a hype building event, like, I should get Purity for using a hashtag once a day, or posting a link, or sharing something on Facebook. But instead, there's this vague idea of I create a link and then I go share it, and maybe if I get some kickback, somebody sends me something, but I have some difficulty explaining to them what that really means. It just sounds like I'm asking them to buy that candy bar that they really didn't want.
Yeah. And, there's actually some strategy to it. There's different things that will happen if somebody sends you 1 versus 5, depending on what class they are and what class you are. And some of that minutia would kind of make it a little more interesting, I think, if it was all explained and laid out a little bit more clearly. But unfortunately, I don't feel like it was. And I feel like we're still just kind of stabbing at the dark, wondering whether, like, should I trade 1 to the person and use my ability? Should I trade 3 to them? Should I trade 5 of them? Does this ability destroy 2 of their plague seals, no matter how many of my purity signs I'm using? It's one of those things. Seals and signs I mixed up there. It's one of those things that I feel like kind of ruins the event a little bit too, is that without the certainty of what's actually going on and how much everything's actually being affected by the actions you take, it feels like you can't really strategize, and you're just kind of, again, you're just stabbing at the dark. It's like, hey, there's things that happen. I'll just throw these seals at it and hope it works. And you can get a vague idea of, like, some things that you can do to kind of chain your things together and try to get more gain out of it. But
if you're someone coming to the game, because the Searing Plague is here, like, you kind of wanted to get involved with Chronicles of Elyria, and you come and you go to this page and you click a button and you, like, let's say,
is it working? I don't have working?
I don't want to go there yet.
So it's work. You're talking about they come and it's working.
I'm saying it's all fine. That it all works. Everything's good.
Right. Okay. I just want to know which state we're in.
I'm saying this is the game.
Yeah.
But you go there and your option is to click a button, and then maybe click one other button, and then either watch a 4-hour timer tick down or walk away. But then somehow, if you want to have, like, in the conversations that I've had in various Discord channels, like, well, you really have to be playing with a large group. That's where all the fun is. Yeah, but at the bottom, there's this annoying embedded Discord thing that I can't, even though I'm logged into Discord, I can't actually type right there. So then I get funneled to Discord. That, despite having this huge Discord community and some, positive interactions and people, having fun in Discord around the idea of a game that might one day be Chronicles of Elyria, at this point, that's a negative in my mind. That we should not be, like, if you want to make a Discord game, well, then let's start building some bots that facilitate Discord roleplay. Like, if that's what the game is, if the game is Discord roleplay, and then you go click a button on a web page, cool. Or not. I just, like, that's my, this is a real issue for me, that funneling people to Discord and then updates about what's going on with the Searing Plague have come via Discord, not email, and then later on a post on the forums. But as things happen, you don't know unless you're engaged in the Discord. So it's a game for people that are involved with Discord. And that that's a big negative for me. But I'll let you talk for a while.
I just wanted to chime in while we have it up on screen. I had tried to get Snipe Hunter on with us so that he could help explain the dev vision, but Serpentia said that it was too quick to get a turnaround on all their red tape in terms of scheduling people. But I'm hoping that we have enough shows coming forward in the next 6 weeks that we'll be able to have them on before the event is over, and I'll have to roll back to all this in a second. But Snipe Hunter in chat says, it's interesting. That really isn't our goal, even though I can totally see why you think it is. We're not trying to recruit with this event. It's more of a community event. Like if there's a funnel, it's a funnel to our community, both to the forums and to our Discord, where the community is most active. Our hope is that the event will wake up some of the less active members of the community and reintroduce them to why it's such a great community. Many in our community don't have a package because they don't want to pay yet. The Purification package gift is a way to say, hey, we get it, but come play with us anyway. We're sure you'll love it, which is a huge problem that the devs have, in my view. But anyway. And
you could buy a Spark later.
Yeah. Feel like he's saying he feels like they made a bit of a mistake by not advertising the positive potentials in the game. There's more to it than just the package. So I think this is the worst game that I've ever played in my life. Just let me say that. And I used to work for Activision, and I got paid to play crappy games in a crappy state. And this is the worst game I've ever played in my life because it doesn't give enough feedback about what you're doing. So, and who knows how to play? The crappy video that they used to introduce doesn't give the correct information.
I didn't even watch that video.
The write-up doesn't give the correct information. So I didn't start either, but when I go looking for answers, it gives me misleading information. And then even when it's supposedly showing you how the website is supposed to work, all it does is have the mouse hover over buttons that don't show the correct information, but don't show you what happens when you click on the button. So it doesn't actually show you how to use the website. It just shows you that there's a website there with some buttons. And so I come in, I was editing video for my No Man's Sky trailer, and the game pops, and I check it out, and I click on something, and I see, okay, that did something. I'm going to have to wait 4 hours until I can do something later. I come back 4 hours later, and there's nothing for me to do. Like, I leave the web page up, so when I'm ready to take a look at it 4 hours later, I'll be able to go right to it. And I'm talking to Tsag in chat, in Discord chat, saying, what am I supposed to do? I'm back 4 hours later. There's nothing for me to do. I'm trying to do something. He's like, well, you just have to click every 4 hours. I'm like, I would love to click every 4 hours. There's nothing for me to click on. What? Okay. I clicked on this thing that says you have to create a link. So I created a link, but now it's telling me I can't do something if I have 2 links or more than 1 link. So I end up deleting the links, and Saga's like, what happened? Did you delete your link? I'm like, maybe I deleted my link. I clicked on a bunch of stuff, and I clicked on anything that I could click on to try and get something to happen. And 8 hours later, 12 hours
I think it was a whole day later.
Yeah.
You realized that you had to refresh the page.
Saturday. The game started Friday. I think it was Saturday at 9 p.m. that I woke up and was like, oh, I have to refresh the page because you caught another discussion that we had in Discord that mentioned refreshing. I literally woke up and was like, oh, let me refresh. And then when I came back, I saw that 4 hours earlier you had posted, refresh. But I'm like, how am I? And it's only 4 hours. So how do I even get to test it? Which is the other thing. We get all these, we only get 1 seal every 4 hours. So that's such a high commodity, like a highly valued commodity. It's not like we're going to throw a bunch of seals around trying to figure out how synergies work and experiment with the game and all that stuff, because it's hard to come by these seals. So one of the biggest problems, there's just not enough feedback. So the worst game that prior to this that I'd ever played was at Activision. It was a game called Hyperblade. And in this game, it's a sci-fi game where you have a hockey stick, you skate around, you can chop off people's heads and use that as a puck and make a goal. And so I wanted to play this game because it's sci-fi. So when I finally got a chance to play the game, I'm trying to skate around. The enemy AI keeps knocking me on my ass every time I take 4 steps. So I'm like, okay, all I really want to do right now is just learn how to skate without getting knocked down. I don't even want to make a goal yet. I just want to learn how to skate without getting knocked down. So I take the fastest guy and I try and skate as fast as possible. No, I still get knocked down in 4 steps. So I take the biggest guy on my team and I'm going to knock them on their ass before they knock me on my ass. And nope, they still knock me on my ass in 4 steps. And I'm livid and I tell my bosses, this game sucks. It's the worst game I've ever played, and you cannot pay me to ever play this game again. They say, maybe you shouldn't be a game tester then. And I say, I'm thinking the same thing, because no game should be able to piss me off this badly. And the problem is, it doesn't give you enough positive feedback. I'm just looking for little tiny goals, and there's no feedback that I can make any progress whatsoever, and that sucks. And what they ended up doing is they put in a tutorial where you could skate around without getting knocked on your ass. And the reason that I was getting knocked on my ass so quickly was because the people who had been testing it for 6 and 9 months kept saying, oh, it's too easy. Oh, it's too easy. Because they had literally spent probably 12 hours a day playing the game for 6 months. But this game, again, this event, the problem is there's no feedback. You're doing stuff and you don't get any feedback that you're getting anything done. Now that I know we can refresh the page, it's a little bit better. But we should be getting feedback about how many seals we spent, how many seals we've spent on what. And that should be on our page. Plagued victims we should be able to see how many more seals they need in order to be cured. All kinds of feedback that we should be getting so that I'm not taking everything on faith. I don't need to see that each action I does is going to increase or decrease the cure bar or the infect bar, but I do kind of need to know that my seals are even just how many seals have I spent? Zog is asking me, did you spend a seal on something? Like, I thought I had one. I don't know where it went. I clicked on a bunch of stuff. So a lot of the problem is just, it's difficult to know how to play if you're just coming to the site. Then you go to the event page that announces it, and it gives you misleading information like, hey, you'll be able to unlock a role once you utilize your seals 10 times. And I waste 10 seals on trades and then come to find out later, oh, trades don't count. Why isn't that on the initial page? Why do I have to go searching for that information? And if the devs had prepped this early and were willing to even teach us how to play the game, content creators could be helping disseminate how to play the game. Content creators could be disseminating how to play each role. At the very least, they should have scheduled time with the devs. Snipe Hunter, I shouldn't be having to wrangle to get Snipe Hunter on our show a few days before. We should have had scheduled dates for devs coming on our show, for coming on Town Crier, and we should be funneling the devs. We should be funneling the community to these shows, the community shows, so that we're getting more. I want to
rewind a second on something you said a minute ago about like finding information and having tutorials and stuff. I think that another problem that presented itself in the community from this event is that because all of the information that was put out after the fact of people just wondering what to do was in Discord and in this one channel that then got split into two. I noticed repeatedly that people coming in and asking for help, like the same questions get asked over and over again, and things are pinned in Discord, but that's not obvious, and no one should have had a way of knowing that. And the reaction from the moderators in the Discord to people who were just trying to figure out how to play the game, like ranting about how people just don't read the pins, and like if people really cared about this game, they would have kept up with this. Like,
why didn't you go to the FAQ? I'm like, because I read the event page and it didn't. This is what it told me to do. Why would I go look at the FAQ?
I literally work right here. Like, this is like that, and Discord is right here. And I can't watch Discord all day to make sure that I get that information, and it doesn't make sense as the right place to get that information. But I just think that because of the way that the information was passed, that it then created this, like, there's this very small group of people that are working together and do have goals and are trying to get people packages, and they're feeling some sort of camaraderie. And then if people say, I don't get it or I don't like it, it's like, yeah, you just don't get it. Like, you're supposed to play this with a large group. Like, this is awesome. You're stupid for not liking. Like, these are the sentiments that come out of in that Discord channel, and I'm like,
and I have to be honest,
don't let me start typing. Don't let me start typing.
That's the kind of feedback I feel like I'm getting from Caspian as well. So I'm not particularly happy about that, because I feel like that's going to happen with the actual game too. So your fault if you don't like it.
Before I do my real rant, can I say some nice things about this event?
Let me try and finish up real quick, and it should take me like less than a minute. And I'll come back to it later too. But I really do think that one of the ways that information should have been and should be disseminated going forward is to have the devs come on our show and talk about the game. Like, it would be great to have them come on our show and on Town Crier and any other community show. And at each one, I mean, Snipe Hunter should be on a different show each week and talking about, hey, this is how the Plague Bringer works, or this is how the Guard works, and this is how you can use them together. And then the community would be going back and forth to watch the shows to get more information from the devs on how to play. That's a great way to have leadership and bring the community together, and also show everybody what's fun about our different shows. I mean, why wasn't that done? Go ahead.
I think that is a reasonable way, but there are a variety of valid ways. I dislike the Discord thing, but all right, I want to talk about, before I say the things that I really have to say later, I want to make sure that I get out some positive things here. I mean, there's obviously a whole lot of care has gone into designing these roles and creating a sort of synergy for the way that they work together, and even for a game that had no external testing, the balance between like Plague and Purity abilities, it seems to be like the initial guess seems to have been, pretty good. And those are some things that usually come much later in an iterative process. And That's pretty good. And I can even, if I take away the timer and I take away the web interface and try to break this down, I can see this idea of it, I can envision it being an interesting base for like a tabletop game. I mentioned as we were talking before, where the first part of your turn is that you draw a plague sign or a purity token, and then you have options for what you do. You need to adjust the goals and build it around that, but that basic action cadence is very similar to what you see in a lot of card games and board games, where it's like the first thing that you do is you draw a card, then you check and see if you have enough of the right things to do something, and then you play your pieces on the board, which then adjust the state of the board, moving on to the next person. And it's really interesting if you had like pairs, kind of like in spades or hearts, where like the person apart from you, across from you, is kind of on your team, where you could like make sure that you're trading the right things back and forth, or forcing trades with the other team to create imbalances that push things, that push the win condition in your favor. And I really do like the way that those classes were designed, and even and the idea of the tokens and the different things you could do with it, because it makes sense in terms of games that have been played for centuries. Now, where I lose it completely is that if I weren't on this show, if I weren't financially invested in Chronicles of Elyria already, if I didn't have a strong hope that maybe one day I'll be able to play Chronicles of Elyria, I would have never got to the point where I could say those positive things, because the interface and the implementation of the idea is really, I don't want to use a pejorative that puts down individuals, but the result, we'll say it's at the very least not done. It uses the wrong tools. It is not done in ways that the tools that were chosen should be used. It's really, really difficult for me because I can implement that better. And that's not self-aggrandizing. It's because I'm not like a superb web dev, but
you are. But you need to let people know you're not just some slob gamer.
You
are learning the tools and stuff like that. So it's
the majority of my job right now is web dev, but it's not like I'm
saying. Yeah,
it's not like I'm a superstar, right?
Yeah. But it's also not like you're just some lawyer who's doing gaming on the side. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I am. Yeah. A part of my job my full-time job is web development, and in the past, I've even worked with people on a game project that is very similar that works in a very similar way to the way the Searing Plague works. it was a project for Atlas Reactor that before there was a draft system in the game, we developed a JavaScript and HTML web system so that in real time people could draft characters for our own custom game sets for the tournaments that we were running. And it solved all of the problems that we see with the implementation of Searing Plague. Like, you have to refresh the page for your generate purity button to come back after your timer goes down. You have to refresh the page to see your how many tokens until you can move on to the next level number go down. Like, all of this stuff that's done via a bad mix of synchronous and asynchronous HTTP requests that really should be done via a WebSocket system. Like, this could all operate behind the scenes just like it's a MUD, where it's communicating packets back and forth asynchronously with the server, and the server is periodically on ticks updating you with the state of what's going on, which very easily, for a web development professional, can be converted into a way to actually chat and communicate with people who are in your party or whatever. Because if you're already tapped into this back and forth server sending text that then gets passed on to people on your friends list or whatever, that's all ways that this could be integrated into a game where perhaps, but my point is here that when and sorry, there was a new
sorry.
How much development time do you want them to put into this, and not the
and
actual
we're all
game?
saying the same thing. None.
Well,
none. They should have put it in. They should have not lost focus on this event to this scale in the first place. But since they did, it should be better.
People. Hopefully they're different people, and progress on other stuff wasn't really held back for this. I'm not going to hold that away. But to do it the way that I'm suggesting it should have been done and should have been designed from the very beginning would not take longer than the current implementation, because the current implementation is overly complex and not using the right tools. So it takes more time to just get things working, right? Because you're hacking things together with the wrong tools. And then that's how you end up wasting time, where, a better implementation plan would have been fine. But my issue with Chronicles of Elyria now is that Chronicles of Elyria is a game that is supposed to be a multi-client, massive multiplayer, evolving online world. It's supposed to be big. The scope of that in general, having the voxel client and the UE4 client and the Kingdoms of Elyria map view client, the scope of all that, and understand all of the same issues like security and cheat protection and bot deterring that have to go into the communication with the server, which really isn't that different to something that operates out of the browser. The same kinds of communications are happening. Right now, this system is it's a poor implementation of a great idea, or an idea with potential. And this is the biggest fear about Chronicles of Elyria as a whole, that, this is an idea with a lot of potential. There are some great details. There's some details that, we'd like to hear a little more about. We'd like to talk a little bit more about, and maybe it'll end up being fun, maybe won't. But the fact is that this is a huge scale, massive endeavor. And it's like my Fox Mulder, I want to believe that this can be possible. But when I see an implementation of a vision put out that comes out the way that the Searing Plague came out, I am shattered. I literally told Diggs a couple days ago that I wasn't sure I wanted to be on this show.
You said you didn't want to spend one more hour thinking about the game.
Yeah. It's shattering to me that it would be that something of this quality would come out of a studio with such grand vision. And I'm very, very disappointed, and I don't know. I'm trying to push through it. I did come on the show. I am talking about it, but there's an event that's coming up in the near future, specifically map voting, which is, from my understanding, designed to be an in-browser experience. There will be a limited number of participants, I believe, but map voting can't go wrong. Map voting can't have a do-over. Map voting can't be like, hold on, wait, we have to reset somebody's timer because they didn't refresh their page, and these kinds of this map voting cannot be skewed by bot accounts pushing one direction through. I don't know all of the restrictions in place, but what I know is that all of the problems from Searing Plague's implementation and all of the things that came up, they are severe threats to the success of map voting. And map voting is the first real meaningful thing where these communities in Discord that have evolved it's where they get to start feeling like they are something, right? That's the beginning, where it's no longer just up in the air. It's like, whoa, we have map voting, and we know that because we're on NA East, and Adam is absolutely the first one to pick his double kingdom, of Vornair. We know what he wants, so he's probably going to pick that. And people are going to start thinking about where on this map they're actually going to settle. There just can't be. This has to be knocked out of the park. And if map voting is knocked out of the park and it's successful and people feel rewarded for it, maybe I'll come back around. But I'm at a real low right now with this, and it might just be that I know too much, that I almost wish that somebody had just called me and asked me to work on this project on the weekends. but that's
you are now where I was when you guys first said you were interested in the game. I'm like, I get that I'm supposed to be excited and I can see the concepts. I'm not sure that it doesn't look like they know how to make it fun. And that's exactly what I feel has been confirmed with this event. I can see that it's complex and it's got lots of the mechanics are kind of cool and great behind the scenes, but is it fun? It's not fun.
I gotta say, there's a lot that I'd kind of like to know. I actually don't, I can't take away what it makes you feel like, but I actually don't feel like the event as a whole is really that bad. And I feel like it'll get better as it goes on, as they actually communicate more of the stuff that didn't go in initially and should have been implemented from the beginning. Yeah, it's and I
so like a better late than never.
I'm
willing to give consolation prizes for that. I won't rule that out.
Okay, yeah, I mean it's the equivalent of kid gets an F on a paper, they redo it, they give an A grade effort, and you give them a C at the end. You average it out, whatever. I'm going to say though that I want to know more about the story of how it actually came to be like this, because they said they were initially planning to release it in July, if I'm not mistaken, or I had heard something along those lines. And I'm really wondering how much of this was feature creep, how much of this was it was going to be a much simpler event, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's why it took so long. How much of it was because design and implementation were either out of sync, or there wasn't enough design to implement, or there was too much to implement, and design was like, whoa, hold your horses, like we can only do this much by July, and then it's like, oh, we can only do this much by 2 weeks after the deadline. Oh, we can only do this much by 2 weeks. And what happens if you do that stop and go sort of thing, it's a little bit different than good old working sprints. When you're just working on a project as sprint by sprint, you're not trying to pause and make a demo or a version that's ready to release, versus if it was meant to release at some time and then every sprint is potentially the one where it's going to release. Unfortunately, that makes things take a lot longer. Unfortunately, features that could have gone in might not have gone in, or they might have gotten muddled, and it ultimately can cause a lot of problems along the way if the content and the details in each version of the release are different to the point where people are confused as to what actually went into it where. So that's some of the stuff that I'm wondering about. And the other thing I'm wondering is, if this didn't really affect development in any specific way, I'm wondering if the only time that it was ever actually being worked on was after somebody's work on the sprint was completed for that sprint, and it's like, all right, well, you got slop time, so throw some cycles at this thing. If that was the case, I can understand why it took a while.
Or that they have someone who's working on the website, and this project was thrown in whoever's his or her lap and had to implement it quickly, but they're missing someone at that skill level to be able to design to plan the implementation well. So it ends up getting hacked together with the things that the person who's, generally just updating a web page knows and understands and has used before, right? They're like, it's...
Yeah, it could be.
Right, I mean, but to really do it well...
Go ahead.
To really do it well, they would have had to put more focus on it. Which is why I'm saying the whole decision to do this is poor development.
Well,
if they knock it out of the park,
it's too late for that.
I guess the other things I want to know is, was it going to be Doctors Without Borders fundraiser from the beginning? Was it just going to be, here's a Doctors Without Borders fundraiser, buy this amount of stuff and you'll get, you'll cure the plague and be able to help other people get packages? And I'm wondering, maybe that would have been more satisfying for people. Maybe less features and less stuff, just throw money at the situation and people will get benefits and you'll get benefits.
People is the dollar amount, like sales targets with the tiered goals in is it May? Was that May? April and May, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember specifically what months, but remember they'd say like, we're $4,000 away from our next community reward tier, and then Snipe Hunter posts back like minutes later is like, well, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, I mean, that worked very well for sales drumming, but I don't know. I think that this event has value from what the stated goal of, actually trying to give the community something to do when, we're really just all waiting on something else. Like if they did have, and this is very feasible, that if they did have a few people who are literally just waiting for another group to get their stuff done in order to be helping pushing that part of the project forward, and they come up with an idea to put a nice community event together. I mean, I think that where that's coming from is very good, but when you're a company that is developing one of the most ambitious game projects I've ever even heard of, when you put out things for people to do that you are programming as games, as network games, they have to be awesome. Like that right now, Searing Plague is our proof of concept for Chronicles of Elyria, because we don't have another one, right? We're not in Vox Elyria. We're not looking at the other stuff. The only thing that we have, the one thing that we were given to do as a game by this game studio, is not something that I believe they are. Well, maybe they are. It's not something that a game studio puts on like, we're super proud of our initial release of the Searing Plague. Applause for Miles.
And that's exactly what Snipe said in chat there is, the event has been pretty successful so far from what we can tell, despite the problems you've noted, which isn't to say that I disagree with you at all. It's more like, well, it is working, offered cheapishly.
Oh, right.
And I completely, agree with that. I understand your perspective too. It's one of those painful things that, I know from having been on the outside and being on the inside, that, all the stuff that I had to say about, EverQuest Next and Landmark as an outsider, it's like, oh, they should do this, oh, they should do that, oh, it's kind of silly that this is being done. Sadly, if I did get put on the team, I'd be saying the same things, but I'd be saying them in internal meetings instead of to the fan base and community. That's the one unfortunate thing, is I don't know who's actually happy with the way that the event came out, and that's why I believe there's going to be a concerted effort to improve the communication of the event and make.
But it's only a 6-week event, which is kind of my issue.
Yeah.
By the time we figure out how to play, we'll have a few days left. What I do want to say about whether it's working, and I mentioned this privately before we started, is that because Serpentia said something similar to me yesterday or the day before. I spent money. I spent $30 on a physician's set because it does something passively every few hours or something, and
what does it do? Have you figured it out?
I can't. No, I mean it's clear what it does. It adds seals to the purity bar, a variable amount every 4 hours or 8 hours or twice. I don't know how many. But I just want to do something because I didn't feel like whatever I was doing before, I wasn't sure I was doing anything. So yeah, it's successful in that it got me to spend $30. It's still not fun. I mean, I don't know how they're measuring their success. But I think it is fun for legendary Neurotoxin, who is playing, well, one, he's playing alongside Snipe Hunter with Ashland. Ashland had it set up, and Neuro can expound a little bit more on it, but they assigned people that we were supposed to report to, and we were supposed to funnel our seals to them specifically, or they would tell us where we're supposed to spend our seals, and then they would decide later, once they got certain people up to tier 1 or tier 2, who would be next in line to get seals, is the gist I got when I looked on there, which completely turned me off because I don't like people to dictate how I do my stuff. But I think it's probably going pretty good for those who enjoy that type of gameplay. So, Neuro, can you expand a little bit more on what that's been like?
There's a couple of parts with the synergy with it. There's a lot of people who aren't actually using the seals to cure their plague, but instead consuming them to try to class up and get into their second tier. So part of it is once you've gotten into your second tier, you can then get more use out of your seals and plague signs. You can kind of do more to eliminate plague signs. You can do more to generate seals by doing different actions, by trading or having things traded to you. So it's something that once you've reached the tier 2 level, now you're actually able to generate more or do more with what's sent to you, or get more out of sending to other people. And it actually kind of feels like you're really making progress at that point. It's hard to tell if any individual action can be tracked. Like if you click and do something and then refresh real quick, I think it'll show the amount that you affected the bar, but I don't know if it shows the amount everyone else also affected the bar in that period of time. How many other people are taking actions at that moment?
I don't know that we need a kind of feedback to know like how much you individually affected the overall bar, but even like a pop-up of like, what if there was an image of someone who was plagued and you used purity and that one person, oh, thank you, you cured me, and
adding more graphic elements, adding more, because that was the thing I think about, like Vampire and Mafia Wars and those sorts of games, that you would the Zynga style games where you didn't really have any like hardcore gameplay. It was all clicking and sorting and organizing your assets and stuff, but every single thing that you clicked on had a story element to it. So at the very least, every item, every mission, everything you could do had some sort of narrative and story sort of element. So I feel like if there was maybe a little bit more of that, you're right. Even if it wasn't an image of some sick person being cured, but just some nice flavor text, and I know they've got the resources to get some writing.
But I don't even need the flavor text. If they would just tell me, keep a tally of how many seals I spent on my instant, and how many seals I traded with my my trade. And then,
a record of these
if that was on my page, I would tweet that. It would be great if it happened automatically every 4 hours. But
right.
Even if that's too much, so we want to do it manually. If I could trade with someone and then they post a tweet that says, "Hey, look, my thing has updated and I've got 5 more, whatever," or I just took those 5 seals and I used them on my instant. Well, you can't use it on your instant, but whatever you used it on, we would have a running tally, and we could see that, and that would, at least I would feel like I'm doing something. Lots of people are saying that at tier 2 everybody should just go Sage, and some people are like, I'm saying like pretty much everybody, and I think the reason for that is that with Sage you get clear feedback that you're doing something, because you literally get stuff
clear feedback, and you don't have to do the raid guild thing. You can just be a player. So like where Neuro's experience playing with Ashland is literally just like vanilla WoW raid guilds where like the first thing you want to do is make sure that your tanks and your healers have the gear that they need to, like the main tank always gets the item first, and it's like determining these roles and ensuring that happens, and if you jump into it as a goal and because they were all working together, they were able to actually see a progress bar because people were getting things funneled in. All right, they saw people get to tier 2 where they will be for eternity. But I think that a game of any kind needs to stem from the game. So like, here I go to the page and I look over here because I have it open right now. I have an hour and 53 minutes and 7 seconds. Yeah, but sorry. As an individual getting started, I click, I purify maybe, or I send something to someone, and then I just have a timer for 4 hours. And I'm not introduced to somebody. I'm not paired with someone. I'm not presented with, well, this person is plagued and is looking to be cured. I'm not presented with a way that I'm interacting. Like, and I could have been part of a group of 20 or 30 or more people who just decided to min-max the event, whatever it was, from the start, and did so. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm trying to not get too tied to these groups in Discord because I'm really uncertain where I'm going to be when the game launches. Like, I'm kind of declared to Sanctifandry, but I don't interact on the server and I don't participate in any of the things, so I'm pretty sure I'll get kicked out of that role eventually. But I don't know. So I actively don't want to be part of a close-knit group for Chronicles of Elyria yet. Maybe I do in the future. And maybe they'll all be people who don't like this society.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to point out you talking about two important things. So when we kind of look at the idea of immersion or enjoyment in games, really in any task, it's highly connected to something called flow, which is kind of basically you can think of how involved you get into a task or a game. How much do you lose yourself, enjoyment? And two of the most important parts of being able to obtain that sort of state. The first one is clear goals. That's the number one. And then also and right behind that at number two is clear feedback. So you guys sitting here talking about, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not getting any feedback. It's interesting to me because sort of from this perspective, those are actually two very important components to enjoying, in this context, a video game, but really anything. You really have, those are just two important things. So it's just interesting for me to hear you guys kind of constantly bringing this up, because when you really start looking at some of the psychology behind a lot of design and stuff, I mean, those are two incredibly important features that clearly you guys seem to be missing. So that explains why, potentially, you're not very happy with it. Personally, I'm sort of, I guess I'm in the middle of everyone here. I kind of find it interesting that our least enthusiastic person and who was at our one point most enthusiastic person are now on the same page. That's not to knock you, Neuro. I know you're also really, really into it. I don't lean one way or the other. I personally don't feel like this is sort of a, oh my goodness, this is how everything's going to be. I kind of see it as, they wanted to do something for the, Vox Elyria got pushed back. They wanted to do something for the community. And so this got put together. Yeah, it seems like it could be done better. But if anything, I'm kind of happy that they're at least wanting to try to keep their community together so much as to actually spend some sort of resources on this. I don't know. It has not influenced me one way or the other. So I'm still looking forward to having a farm at whatever point that might be.
Well, so for me, I think that my preference would be to form a different sort of leadership. I mean, Legendary has said several times that, this is a game where the leadership finally get to do what they do. But I think content creators are also leaders. For me, the most important part is the role-playing or the character interaction. So even when I was first talking with Zog about how he was playing the game, and he said, "Oh, I don't really care, who gets Plague and who gets Purity. I might just help both." And I was like, "Oh, cool. So are you going to just ignore the other roles that we get, and you're going to play like a mad scientist and give a little here and experiment there?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, whatever." Because I'm trying to figure out who his character is and how his character is involved. And the people that I help, I want to help the people who are actively role-playing. So for me, and I hope one of the things that we start doing here, one of the things that starts happening with Town Crier, is that we give shout-outs to the people that we're supporting, and to let people know, hey, these are the people that I'm supporting, not in the sense that I saw at Ashland, where it's like, we're supporting these people, you need to support these people too. But hey, I like these people, these are who I'm focused on this week. For me, that's Dr. Bombastus, who you can find on the forums, you can find him in Discord too. But what I love and why I'm supporting him is that he put up a forum page about his clinic, and he's asked people to write no less than 100 words, what their experience is with the plague, talk about your symptoms if you want to be cured, so that he can do some research and help come up with a cure. And for those who have different roles on the purity side, talk about your experience there. And so we actually get some role play, which is the whole part of why I'm interested in this game in the first place.
Yeah, I wanted to just be like, because like my Chronicles of Elyria character, I want to be kind of like operating a Torresque, like river trading town, right? And so I'm thinking, I just want to move stuff through, right? I want to facilitate. Yes, we sell Plague, we sell Purity, we're good. But after days of trying, have had nobody ever sent me a Plague sign. So, and like, no matter who I talk to, I think Neuro and Dig sent me some Purity seals, but like I wasn't able to play that way. Instead, I tried to just do timer watching, and then when there was an update to the system that I didn't know about, and I was literally waiting for my timer to refresh, and the button didn't refresh, and I had to go to Discord to find out that at that time it was going to be a skipped time. You want to know how many buttons I've pressed since then? One, just before this show, because I needed to just check and see if anything had changed dramatically. And do I expect to be pressing more buttons after that? I literally watched a 4-hour timer go down, and then it didn't happen.
Right.
I am.
Yep.
Yep. It was, it's such a little thing, but
yeah, I don't know.
That is the kind of feedback that makes people flip tables.
Yep.
I gotta say, I've played so many games, so many indie games in pre-alpha state that something being broken on the first implementation of the first version of anything that they could call a game that you play, something being broken, something being limited or lacking, I've come to expect and get used to. And it's like, oh, pressing refresh after the timer's up, that's just how you play the game. To me, it's just an automatic response. So it's no skin off my back. It's just like, well, that's how it's played. No big deal.
No big deal.
Not for me. Again, I played tons and tons of indie games in much worse states than this, believe it or not, like platformers or RPGs and stuff that like you can't even properly get through the UI and stuff like that because there's a mismatch of the resolution, the screen resolution, and where you're clicking on the screen. That sort of ridiculous stuff. Like this, at least when I click on the things, they do the thing. It might not refresh, sure. Okay, so you have to refresh manually every time. It's not like back in the days of like Neopets when it would automatically refresh every time you take an action anyway. So whatever. So they took a step back on that. It's not like, they couldn't potentially remake Neopets in their own way. It's not like you personally couldn't make Neopets in your own way. But, this doesn't sound like it was the thing that had the greatest amount of focus and the greatest amount of attention from the people that controlled the design and content side of things. So, a spec was submitted. It was parsed through by web engineers, and this is the result. And maybe it passed through the artist one time. There might have been some light approvals, while much more important things were being worked on and approved. So, hey, whatever. Some of the things maybe slipped through the cracks. That's fine. Week 1, they've already built some of the features in that were missing. Week 2, I'm sure they'll have a lot more of the stuff in. And who knows? Now that we've talked about it, maybe
it'll be a great game.
Yeah, maybe by week 3 they'll actually have some flavor text in there.
I mean, it was nothing that anyone was ever going to be immersed in. I mean, it's a broken. It's broken, right? You have to send a link, wait, send a link, wait. So.
But again, I don't necessarily mind, because if I was focused on the roles. There's a way that I could RP this that could be engaging if I knew how the roles work. Do we even know, by the way, what the plague roles are? I've heard of thief and plague bringer, but I haven't seen a place where I can look at what the plague side roles are.
I can't see them either. I don't know.
But they should be posted somewhere, is what I'm saying.
You have homework.
But I'm saying... What I'm saying is that it should be obvious.
It's also okay for the community and players to discover things, like that idea of and I think Caspian tried to communicate this desire, but it came out way wrong when he did. Years ago, a lot of things in games, like you didn't even, like in Star Wars Galaxies, nobody knew how to become a Jedi, right? There was no roadmap to that, and there's value to discovery if, when you start playing, you have things to do and you have meaning to your existence, right? So the people who were most active at the very beginning appear to be people who cared about progression. They wanted to be level 2 instead of level 0, right? So everybody give me your stuff so I can be level 2. And I think that the thought was, so I get to level 2 and then maybe I do have a sense of identity and that I can do something and I can do more in the game. But there isn't a whole lot of identity at the.
Sure, and one of the things.
There's a difference. I click one extra button every 4 hours.
One of the things that's happening again is everybody is saying we need to play Sage, and the devs keep saying we're telling you that's not a good idea because down the road you might want to be focusing on using abilities to knock down the outbreak bar. But people are like, no, this is where I can get all my feedback. And by the time they learn the lesson, everybody's going to be Sage. So what do you do at that point? But again, I don't see why we should have to learn what the other side's roles are. And if I knew what the other side's roles were, maybe I would be giving them whatever they need so that they can do their roles. Again, I could role play with them. Hey, you're a thief. I'm a corpse taker. Or hey, you're whatever those are. Why can't we at least know what those are? And what we should be trying to do is
on the forums or somebody.
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. I stopped
you
looking.
You would think one of the four of us could find. I mean, would be able to easily find.
Here's the tier 1 plague rolls.
Did you find them?
Yeah, Snipey sent them to me.
Right.
But I mean, really, is this? I mean, do you really think this was supposed to be any kind of RP event? I know you want to RP it, but I mean, it really just seems like a way to get people together talking.
The people I'm looking for to support
Chronicles of Elyria RP event.
The people that I'm looking to support are people who are going to RP, and you might support a different set of people, and Zog might support a different set of people. But that's part of what I'm saying is then the content creators, we who are doing shows, could come up and say, hey, this week I'm supporting this person, and I'm supporting him for this reason. And Legendary Neurotoxin would say, I'm supporting these people because this is what the people where I am are doing. And Zog would have a different set of people who, if you knew what the plague roles were, it might be easier for him to find people to send him plagues.
Yeah, nobody sent me any plague.
Yeah.
Nobody even responded to me when I was anywhere asking for stuff. So.
Yeah. And so, before we're going to start wrapping up pretty soon, when we post to YouTube, people should send requests in our comments. We really should make a page on the forum so that we can be monitoring stuff and help people out that way. We might even get some story done there too, so we can let people know what we're doing, and we can support people in what they're doing. And I would really love to have at least a 20 or 30 minute show next week where we talk about what's happened with the event. Even if it's just me and Legendary doing that much. It'd be nice to have people on who are talking about what their roles are and how they think their roles work. And it would be nice to have people on to help us theory craft about the best way to do synergies or to bring down the outbreak bar, or what's the thing about going Sage and how is that going to affect. We should be doing a weekly show at this point. And it would be nice to have devs come on. I'm not just saying, again, our show. Devs should be working, Serpentia should be working to get devs on all the show to help us understand how to play this.
I'm sure they would like to do that too.
They should have done it. Well, they should have done it.
So
the infect
in
bar
1
has
week,
increased.
the plague bar is up 21.2%.
That's what I was just saying. It seems like since when they brought it down and put it back up, all of a sudden it's like quickly filling. Before it was like hanging at like 4 or 5%. And then just in the last few days, actually, it's now jumped up a huge amount.
So which bar was that?
The plague bar.
Yeah. No, it's been steadily going pretty much. Where the cure bar has been doing.
I mean, when I was paying attention, and that was all the way up until they brought everything down, it was pretty. I mean, it was kind of slow. It was like 2, 3, 4. So that was what day this week when they had to sort of put a pause?
When it went down, it was at 14%, and then I think when it came back up, it was at 14 or 18, but it was like 14 when it went down.
I think 18.
Yeah, it's like it's between 3 and 5 every day. It's gone up. So,
yeah, Baldwin, Hammerfist, or Cat's in the Hand.
Yeah, it's about time for the end.
So when either bar hits 100% or 6 weeks passes, it's done.
I would imagine it's rigged in such a way that if 6 weeks pass and you haven't got the cure all the way up, the plague just fills it out the rest of the way. That's my guess.
I put this in chat. I will say it out loud. I am rooting for the plague.
I think we should be rooting for the plague. Well, and so this is the other thing. I'm going to just throw this in real quick. Is I would love again to get this deviant set because it's supposed to add 1 to the plague bar.
That was an old pack. Some of those things aren't available anymore.
But when I think about that, and that's the other thing because it doesn't let me know that.
But I want to pay to win.
So yeah, I probably would have paid for it. But just because it lends to the plague, and if I played as a Dross, which I think the Dross would love to have a plague lands or should love to have a plague lands, there should be tribes for whom it's a plus to have a plague lands. It doesn't seem to be that's the way they're going because it's more important to be racist about why we don't like the different tribes rather than actually have things like it's culturally beneficial for Dross to wear deviant outfits that generate plague. And it's one reason why you would outlaw people wearing deviant outfits because it's going to bring plague into your lands, and you don't want that. Why? All of that could be great. I don't know that any of that is happening, and it's not being told that it's happening, which is why I'd like to have devs.
It doesn't matter to me at all whether there's plague or not plague, because when the game starts, that's the game, right? Like that. There's no juxtaposition. There's no like this server has plague or this server doesn't. Or there's no way that I could choose. You know, when it's all way before we ever even touch it kind of exposition, it doesn't matter. I don't care if they roll dice about all this stuff. Either the game's fun when I log in, and that's not going to be affected or not, and that's not going to be affected by whether or not there's a plague land or whether there's a plague. It's a pretty neat community event. There's definitely good ideas in there in the background. I really hope. My last thing that I'm going to say is that I really, really hope that map voting is knocked out of the park. Like at this point, I need to see a real win, or I'm gonna feel like I'm wasting my time. And I kind of feel like that, but I'm willing to because I love the concept of this game. I'm willing to keep supporting the hope. But after this, and I'll talk about the plague more if I have to. But map voting, all I care about now is I want to see map voting, and I want to see it aced. Just show me you can ace something. Like, that's it. And even just that, right? If you show me you can ace something, I'll believe you can ace something else. And I'm not saying I want a game with perfect servers that never go down on day one, but the scope of this project is gigantic, and you got to show me that you can ace map voting.
So I'll just reiterate real quick. I would love to have a show next week. Homework, if we do a show next week for at least Neuro, I would love for you to have 1 or 2 people that you're supporting or that you would like people to support, who to send stuff to, and I'll share that too. And we should do some theory crafting about, what role do we think is best, if there's a best, and, which role, we'll just pick one maybe to talk about and see how we think the role can be useful based on what we know. So that's my hope. We should bring it if we can find somebody in a role. It's not us. Maybe Polaris.
One of the people that's organizing the event would probably be better organizing one of the groups. That would probably be pretty cool. So we'll see who we can get.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We successfully gone 30 minutes over.
Yeah.
So I have to change we're almost out of time from 10 minutes to 30. All right. So maybe we'll all be here, maybe not, but somebody, I guess, will be here in
I hope so.
1 week. I guess I have to because I do all the tech. Do I have homework? You can let me know.
I don't know if you want to participate in the homework part, so
I'll just sit here.
I'd like for you to be here to host.
I'll just look.
I would love for you to participate.
All right, guys. Everyone, thank you, and have a good weekend.
See you later.